Hello folks, Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very cool winter afternoon. The name of this video is called The Guy Researches Sheol. Now, this video is going to be slightly controversial because most people in my camp, people that are non-hell believers, still believe in the word usage of Hades. And this is going to step on some toes. Okay, it just simply is. But anyway, I thought the best way to do things is to go to the original word that was used and really do a good thorough study and research of the word Sheol. So I did, and take it or leave it or whatever. You know, let's run with this, all right? You know, this video will define why I'm so adamant, okay, and almost anal, why neither hell nor Hades belong in Scripture to replace the word as well as the meaning of Sheol. All right. Now, ever since the first Jewish captivity into Babylon, around 600 BC, the word Sheol was for some time regarded by historians as the same as the Assyrian, Babylonian, pagan word Shualu. Shualu. That's S-H-U-A-L-U. Okay, that had the meaning of the place. I'm going to quote. Okay, the place whether the dead or sighted or bidden, or they had a definition, the place where the dead are gathered. All right, close quote. Now, one can see, by knowing that, one can see why and how the phrase depicting the abode of the dead originated. Because, you know, it just seems like another way of saying it. All right? Now, if you think it originated within Judaism, listen on. You better think again, okay? Other similar pagan religious words were used for Sheol, such as Sheol. Sheol is S-H-A'-A-L, meaning to consult an oracle, or, quote, to cite the dead, close quote. An oracle to conjure up the dead. Are you hearing this, folks? To conjure up the dead sure sounds like paganism to me, you know. However, the Assyrian word Shilu, that's S-H-I-L-U, was discovered by historians as meaning a sort of chamber, close quote, for possibly the sorting of bodies. Now, this is going to start making sense here in a moment. The old Assyrian word Shilu is the closest to the proper source of the Hebrew word Sheol. It's the closest. Doesn't say it's exact. It says it's the closest. Because of the word Shilu, it's been conjectured by some historians that the biblical concept of Sheol was actually borrowed from the Assyrians by the Hebrews. I know this is history, this is ancient history, and it can be somewhat, you know, I understand, but the conclusion is going to make some sense here. You know, because I believe the Sheol was an independent concept. I really do. Completely and totally independent concept. Because in the mind of a Hebrew, all right, what separated them from their pagan neighbors was monotheism, a belief in just one God. None of these other folks believe that way. That's one of the things that defines paganism versus something that's not paganism, is multiple gods, all right? So this strong belief would eliminate any thought of an underworld, think about it, that was ruled by another deity, i.e. a false god. Are you following me? Now, according to the Jewish Encyclopedia, I'm going to do some quotes here, okay? The ancient Jews believed Sheol is practically a family grave on a large scale. The separate compartments, now this is my insert here. Remember the Assyrian word for sorting chambers? Separate compartments? Okay. Back to the quote. They are devised for the separate clans and families, national and blood distinctions continuing in effect after death. That Sheol is described as a subterranean application, of hewing out of the rocks passages leading downwards. Okay, for burial purposes. Does this Sheol that they're describing in this encyclopedia sound like Sheol is an afterlife to you? Hardly. Further, it stated, quote, in Hebrew, one's soul was not, that's the two key words, was not some ghostly ethereal essence. Okay, now here's my insertion. Like it is with Hades. Okay? Back to their quote, but rather one's condition of being alive as well. Alive. Are you catching me? As well, best described as the Hebrew word, nepesh. Nepesh, N-E-P-E-S-H. Okay, the Hebrew authors weren't so much concerned about the post-life destination of the individual. This is still part of their quote. The Hebrew authors weren't so much concerned about the post-life destination of the individual, but rather about the real-life destination of humanity here on earth. In this context, still out of the encyclopedia, in this context, the Hebrews were much more concerned about one's part in the salvation or preservation of humanity, namely one's name. That is to say, one's personhood relative to the rest of humanity. This is super important if you can just catch this. That means that one's personhood might be passed on to one's offspring, and this happens in the Bible most clearly with Jacob, whose name and nickname, Israel, became synonymous with his offspring, close quote. Okay? What this encyclopedia reading tells me is, depending on the biblical context, folks, the one's name or the one's offspring, Sheol can be a turning to dust, which is talked about in Job 17:16, which on the individual level is obviously referring to the grave, or on a social level about a family, where the bodies will be entombed for continuing a namesake. All right? Now, I'm almost done here. The encyclopedia continues by saying, quote, Sheol appears to denote not only the realm, as in the location, that's what realm is location, where the body is laid in death, but also the quality of mortality. That's when they're not dead, all right? While still living, as the psalmist notes. Here's a quote from King David. The cords of Sheol entangle me, Psalms 15:5. Does that sound like he's dead? How about the pangs of Sheol laid hold on me, Psalm 116:3. He wasn't dead when he said those things, okay? Also, as defined in the Jewish Encyclopedia, here's quote, the noun, okay, I'll finish with a PS on what that noun means. The noun Sheol refers primarily to the grave, and by extension, to death and decomposition. That's no afterlife, folks. Oh, close quote. Sorry. So, folks, this is what I've been saying for years, all right? Sheol, defined as the abode of the dead, as in a ghostly, ethereal essence, is a Greek perversion known as Hades, and nothing more than a derivative description dating way back to ancient Babylon and Greek paganism. That's all it is. So, to those who hold on to the validity of Hades as meaning Sheol, you have the right. You really do. You have the right to ignore my research that I've shared here and the quotes that I've given you out of the Jewish Encyclopedia. But you've got to answer these two questions for me. You just have to if you're going to hold on to this. One, the Greek word for tomb and grave is Taphos, T-A-F-O-S. So why didn't the Septuagint use Taphos instead of Hades to replace Sheol? Why didn't they? Since Sheol simply means tomb or grave in most contexts within Hebrew writings. But wait, maybe the ancient Greeks were implying the dead or death in general. Maybe that's what they were thinking, which would fit nicely with describing Sheol. Two, all right? The problem with that kind of thinking is how the Greek word for dead is nekros. Okay, N-E-K-R-O-S. And the word for death is thanatos, which is T-H-A-N-A-T-O-S. So why not use either of those words for death or grave if it's, or I'm talking just dead or death, not death or grave, sorry, dead or death, instead of Hades? Okay? If translations aren't consistent, they are wrong. Period. So there's a political reason, folks, that the ancient Greeks used Hades, but most who watch this video will just blow it off as just me being conspiratorial. Yet these same scoffers will accept the fact that the ancient Latins conspired to insert the word hell into Scripture. You see? Come on, Hades believers, give me a break. I don't even want to ask why the Greeks didn't use the word depicting the quality of mortality while still living, like King David was pointing out in the Psalms. I I have no doubt that the word wouldn't be Hades. I bet you it wouldn't be. So, in closing, I was once told that the Septuagint, just recently on Facebook, I was recently told that the Septuagint was irrelevant to why Hades was in the New Testament. Irrelevant? You know, I believe the New Testament Greek translators used the Septuagint as a reference. Wouldn't you? Okay? So I also can't help but to believe that the word Hades would have never been used in our Greek New Testaments that we have now, if not for the Septuagint. This is why it's so important to question why the word Hades was installed in the Greek Old Testament in the first place. And that's what this video is all about. For those who are curious or interested, I'm sure very few of you like these ancient history lessons. I understand that, okay? But here's that P.S. I told you about it being a noun. Why Sheol can be a noun or is a noun. The reason the Jewish Encyclopedia kept referring to Sheol as a name rather than simply a word is because Sheol, I'm going to quote them, means the same thing as the name Saul. Isn't that interesting? Saul. And Saul means asked for, A-S-K-E-D-F-O-R, asked for in Hebrew. I read that some Hebrew scholars say that Sheol was named this way because death is neither satisfied and will always ask for more. That's just like an old ancient Hebrew old wives thing, I guess, as spoken about with the use of hyperbolic language in Proverbs 27:20 and 27:20 and 30:16. So, anyway, I hope this entertains you just ever so slightly, and just enough to make you think, because most of my viewers know, okay, most of you who have subscribed to my channel, you know that hell was an insert by the ancient Latins, and it doesn't belong in the Bibles. And why I keep pressing this issue, this will probably be the last video I'll do on this whole subject of Hades and stuff. Maybe not, knowing me, but, you know, why I'm so strong against it, because the reason I am is because perception is so important. You ask any person on the street, what does Hades mean to them? And they're going to say, hell. Okay? So, you know, even though our Greek Bibles have the word, some of our Greek Bibles have the word Hades in them, I have one, the Concordant Literal doesn't have Hades in it at all, or hell, of course. Of course it doesn't have that. You see? So it's just that if you're going to be quoting out of your Greek Bibles, your Greek New Testament especially, and trying to help somebody realize that hell is not real and it doesn't exist, and then you turn right around and replace it with Hades, you're cutting your own foot off. Because in their perception is, oh yeah, you're just confirming that there's hell. Because to them, Hades means the same thing as hell. And I'm trying to point out how it's not necessary to even go there, to even use that word. It's not legit. Anyway, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down on this video. Okay, and make sure your comments are polite. Look me up on Facebook under a group called the Y Guy Group. It's a private group. I also have an avatar name of Jonathan Jones. You can find me there, and it's not private, it's public. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you for viewing.